That 2 hours is meant to just generate a little more stress in the plant, but a controlled stress. We don't want to get the point of wilt, but we don't want to be super wet in the morning, because if you kind of misshoot this and you keep your plants a little heavy, you're going to get extended internodes, and that's going to reduce your yield overall. What's up, guys? Welcome to Grow Room Weekly. Alex and Tim here. Alex is being really mean to me right now, so I'm a little sad. I have my sunglasses on. So today we're gonna go over Rudin. That's a real story. Today we're gonna go over Rudin, also known as like Gen 1. Basically the first 0 to 21 days in your rooms. So we're gonna go over that, how we practice it, tips and tricks. If you have any questions, please let us know. Alex will answer them, not me. So
check it out.
Yeah, see you guys in there. Alex has to stand behind me because he's a giant, and I look really tiny. You're not even that much taller, but I look so small on camera. Are you filming? Of course you are. I'm 6 feet. My license says 6 feet, okay, guys? If you got a problem, you can take it up with the state of California.
Chris said we're measuring him when we get done with this.
What's up?
Hey guys, this is room 1. So today is day 14 in here, which means on the Blue Zoo, it's day 4. So today's topic, we're gonna be talking about Rudin and Generative 1. So this first phase of getting the plants going and acclimated to the rooms and how we choose to allow them to drink.
Yes.
Irrigation's in our control. It's something that we're determining. Yep. And then letting the plants show us the signs of like what they need more of or what they need less of. Tim, you want to give a definition of generative?
Oh no, oh no. Generative irrigation is a crop steering water strategy that uses controlled water stress and larger, less frequent watering events to force plants to focus energy on flowers, fruits, and seeds rather than leaves and stems. Layman's term for all of us growers that don't really look at definitions because we've been growing for a while. We're generating the bud sites, right? We're trying to steer the plant so it generates more bud sites, more development earlier in the plant's life so that we can get into bulking. And a lot of the work we do now with Gen 1 or Rudin, that can be used interchangeably, a lot of the work we do now determines the yield in the end. So that first 21 days is, I would argue, the most important time in a plant's life.
Yeah, 100%.
When it comes to like the yield and the potential that you can capture from the plant. Other times of flower are important for other reasons, but when you're talking yield, the potential, what you're gonna pull out of that room those first 21 days, super important.
Yeah, I like to look at it as like kind of 3 stages. Some of them are happening simultaneously. You have the Rudin and transfer into the room as one. Yep. You have the stretching and stretching in the plant going up to doing what it needs to do, and then the stacking of the bud sites.
Oh, okay, so 3 within that Gen 1.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
And so like each one, you're trying to achieve slightly different things. That first Rudin, you're trying to get the plants to acclimate to its environment and want to start drinking. Here we use 70-30 substrate. It has the safety net of cocoa, but some of the more similar Drybacks to rock wool. So it's like a nice middle ground for a lot of our cultivators.
Cheating. You should try 70-30.
I really love 70-30. It's my favorite substrate because you get those aggressive dry downs. And at our facility, we happen to be on the gas really, really hard when it comes to irrigations. We're a little bit more chill on the environments when it comes to like stress-wise. Yeah. And we like to control that stress through irrigation, and this is the most important time to be able to do so. When we're looking at our plants, one, you kind of have to determine how much do these plants generally drink if you've run this before, and what is the maximum capacity that it could have, and what is the low point that you want to get before it hits wilting point.
Yes.
Due to your rooms and sometimes schedules and what time rooms turn on, typically we like to irrigate about 2 hours after lights turn on, and kind of get that metabolism in the plant used to drinking and eating food at the same time every single day.
Which I think is something that we hold very, very close, is like that 2 hours, we don't deviate outside that 2 hours. Yeah. You can have, if you can control the plant's expectancy of when that water will be there, you can pretty much control what you want with the plant early on. So it's very, very important you stick to a schedule and you don't deviate even 30 minutes. Like stick to 2 hours on during generative, or 2 hours of irrigation after lights on. And that 2 hours is meant to just generate a little more stress in the plant, but a controlled stress. We don't want to get the point of wilt, but we don't want to be super wet in the morning, because if you kind of misshoot this and you keep your plants a little heavy, you're going to get extended internodes, and that's going to reduce your yield overall.
And I think this is where like some of our philosophy of how we cultivate might differ from typical crop steering things, where it's like we do get a little bit drier number percentage wise earlier on.
We tend to, yeah.
And to a point that it's like could be very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
It makes people uncomfortable.
Because we want the plants to want to drink. We want them to want to eat food. We want them to want to uptake them. So we might see a little bit of leach tilt. We might not see like
wilt,
like crashing, right? Yeah. But we still want them to want to have that water early on. And really those first few days of rooting, especially if you're not vegging in place, are really, really pivotal to see where they're gonna land at.
And something to your point, we side on more oxygen in our substrate than water content. Obviously, water holds a certain amount of oxygen, but when you're talking about the wet-dry cycle in a plant, having that dry out is very important for roots to get the oxygen they need. That's how you maintain your root health. Slapping them with water constantly really gives them, it kind of chokes out the roots. That's where you get that browning look. So if you're getting that, anytime in flower, try to back off that water content a little bit. And when we talk about drying back, that morning shot, we refer to that as P0, right?
Yeah,
P0 is the number, the percentage of water content before the first irrigation event. That is super important. That first irrigation event to field capacity is P1, phase 1, right?
Yeah, and I think this is a really, really important place where it's,
tell me.
So many people rely too heavily on their sensors, I think. I think they're important to have for number-wise, but when you come in the room, like you're typically measuring 2 to 3 plants per bench in most situations.
Yeah.
That's indicative of the most average plant that you're plugging it into.
Yep.
Early on, I'm typically in here picking up pots all the time to see that those sensors are in an accurate place. They're representing the group as a whole, and that the plants aren't visually stressed. Like sometimes what 18% might mean crashing on certain genetics or during certain environmental rooms, where really sometimes it could go down to 15 before it shows any signs of droop.
I would agree.
So being in touch with each specific room and picking up those pots is extremely, extremely important as you go through that rooting phase until it gets to its normal cadence of, hey, it's used to eating at this time. We describe it as velocity changes when you're actually looking at the charts. You're seeing those lines like go aggressively steeper up or steeper down. You see when the lights kick on, the chart will drop down quite a bit. And then sometimes that around the time that maybe 30 minutes before the actual irrigation kicks, it drops down even steeper. That change in the line is important to note, and you can't do that by hand either. So this is why sensors are also important to have, but you need a mix of both of them.
Yeah, you can't be an armchair cultivator. You gotta get in there, gotta pick up the plants. What that does allow you to understand though is the relativity of what 18 and what 20% feels like in the pot. That's really, really important because like Alex said, if you can make sure your sensors are in the right place early on, then you can really steer later on when it really makes a difference, like during bulk and ripening. So important to establish that baseline early. The more reps you get on those plants and in those rooms, you'll start to really get that, repeated. It is important to note, we've used almost every sensor company in the game and they all read differently. They all have different wilt points. So whether you're running GrowLink, Arroyo, Trim, whatever it is, and the different substrates you're in, make sure you qualify what that percentage means. You really can only do that by hand and drip drain, which is something that is a very old school technique, but we still employ here today. We get a lot of questions about what EC runoff we're looking for during different stages of flower. And I will say that generative is characterized by less runoff out of your plant. That's how you stack the EC in your substrate. And what I'm looking for, and like all my notebacks going back like 10 years, what I'm looking for is my input EC is, call it 2.5. I'm looking for 1.5 to 2 EC increase on my output on my drain test. So that means I'm looking anywhere, if I'm putting in at 2.5, I'm looking anywhere from 4 EC to 4.5 EC. If I start to go over that, I will either reduce my input or push more runoff to kind of lower that. And if it's a little low for generative, I want to make sure I start drying back the plants a little more, giving them less resources. The more we dry them back, the higher the EC goes, right? Negative correlation there. But very, very simply, during generative, that early root in, I'm looking for a higher EC output than what we're putting in, because that means you're stacking that EC, you're generating the bud sites, and you're cueing the plant for what it wants to be doing, you're just helping it along.
I think an important thing to note is once you get past that root in period, your irrigations are going to get a little bit more consistent too.
Yeah.
And so then
That's
you're going
to,
and then this is where it's really important to keep track of where your highest point is, like at peak saturation at the top of your P1, where that lands, because that's going to change as roots start to fill in that pot a little bit more. And you're going to see that either some sensors will drop, some sensors will raise. And so understanding the language of your sensors is important. And then also, same thing, as those roots begin to fill out, am I actually going drier than what the sensors read? Right? And how that's affecting the plant. And it's really important to just know those delineations. For us, we're about like 45 to 50-ish.
70-30 mix is technically, or is usually around 45% to 50% water content.
Yeah, at peak.
Peak saturation. Like if you have stretchy plants, like if you got like this is Lance right here. Lance will bang if you give it way too much water. So what we need to do is dry it out a little more aggressively, a little bit of a lower number to make sure it generates that good bud stack. Whereas Blue Zushi right next to it, she does not want to be dried out like that. She likes to be drier, but she does not want to hit that 15, 16, 17, 18. Like she wants to stay a little wetter. So just, plant to plant, genetic to genetic.
And room to room, your environment really has to be able to handle the aggressive drybacks, because like you are going to get humidity changes that like you're at 18% in your pots. There's not very much water just floating around in the room, so your humidifiers have to be able to keep up. So there's a lot of things involved of like why we do it differently. Also, we don't have genetics that are like super susceptible to herming or like a lot of those stress characteristics. And so this is where you need to kind of play with your rooms and determine what works best for you.
That was Gen 1 root in. That's all I got.
That's all I got. Cool. So today's question, this is one of our most
Frequently asked.
So light placement and like light height, like what do you set them to?
So your under-canopy light height is more a question about how deep your canopy is. And our goal is to get about 4 to 4.5 feet of canopy depth. That's from the top nug to the last nug that you're trying to populate and light up with under-canopy. That whole thing, that's your canopy depth. So we want to aim for that 4 to 4.5 mark. That will dictate where you place your lights. So if you're growing a 3-foot plant, you can have your light the lowest setting possible, which is just above the substrate. We don't want to blast your substrate with light. So if you've got a shorter plant than 4 feet, then you can set it to the lowest setting. If you have the adjustable stands, that's 8 inches, super easy, okay? Now, if you're growing a little bit of a taller plant and say you're in that 5-foot area, we suggest underclearing about 1 foot on the bottom of that plant and extending that light 1 foot. So our adjustable stands will go up to 12 inches, so that's your foot. So anyway, your light placement is dictated by how deep your canopy is. To get the most out of your room, you want to make sure you get a canopy depth of about 4 to 4.5 feet.
And some strains like Sherb might get nugs all the way down to the substrate. And then other things like LCG, the first 1.5 feet is
kind of worthless.
It's all branches. And so there might be some nugs populated down there, but you could just strip those off and bump that light higher and get it more towards the center of your plant where the majority of your bud sites will be.
All your soldiers are in the middle of the plant. Make sure you're lighting that.
Cool.
That's it. Thanks for the questions. Alex is a child.
Tim's upset.
No, seriously. Thanks for tuning in. We doing an outro or are we doing the fucking...
We're doing an outro.
Okay. Start over. Can't tell me to be
cool,
weird.
guys. That was Grow Room Weekly. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions, leave it down below. We'll try to do our best to answer those questions as soon as we can. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
Real talk. We are doing the outro. Go ahead, do it again. What's up?
You're me up, Tim. I'm gonna freak out.